Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. We tell you the truth, no matter how much it might hurt to hear it. I am glad to be back. It's been 2 weeks. There are some reasons for that. Don't want to get into it all. One was just a planned trip out west, elk hunting. Another one's a more personal thing. Maybe I'll discuss it with our premium subscribers in the after show. It's an interesting 2 weeks to have been gone. Right before I left, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. The last show I did was called Who Killed Charlie Kirk? And it was because it was the day before or 2 days before they actually found the alleged killer. So from afar, and if you've ever gone elk hunting or been off the grid for an extended amount of time, you're getting to a hilltop or maybe you get into town for a little bit, you kind of turn on the phone, and I'm seeing all the conspiracy theories. I'm going to address just from my perspective what I think is a little fishy. I'm not going down any road because I don't have the full story here, but I want to get into that a little bit today. First off, we're going to talk about Governor Walz. He is seeking another term, which is unprecedented. We're talking about quickly the auditor race here in Minnesota. Then what I want to do, let me make sure I've got this here, the order. I'm going to pivot to, Pete Hegseth had a speech to the Department of War generals. Okay, it's not the Department of Defense anymore, it's Department of War, which I initially was very much against that idea. I think I understand a little bit more. Not so upset. I think it's a rebranding thing. I quite frankly think the military need a little rebranding lately. I'll get into the nuances of that. What I thought was really good about that speech, what I think is really needed. Not some rando civilian just opining on it. I spent 12 years. I'm an Iraq War veteran, Kosovo veteran, left as a captain in the United States Army, finishing up National Guard. I think I got a perspective. Actually, I was technically a peer of Pete Hegseth, although I don't think I ever saw him when we were in uniform. We only ran into each other on political terms. So I'll get into that. I'll dive into it from my perspective. And then I want to share something that's really good about Minnesota, heroic athletic event that a lot of people don't even really know took place. Hopefully they know the star of it, but I'm going to get into that here. I am going to make sure that I share this here on Facebook. The one problem with doing the show by myself, because I'm going to be flying solo today, is I don't have someone to turn to so I can promote. We're live. Okay, so I'm just doing that on Facebook here. So we're live on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Locals, and X, I believe. And then I also want to talk about, and I'll probably talk about this at the very end, just some show notes, what we're doing here in the near future. And then I'll share a little bit more in depth with our post-show premium subscribers. So if you want to be a premium subscriber, you can join us. You can go to Rumble and click on join us, or you can go to Truth Hurts Show. I'm just going to post right now in the comment section for all you guys. Join us. And this is how you can become a paid premium subscriber, get access to the post show and other things. And it's going to get better. I'll tell you that much. I see Cindy Lou, Gunner is here. Tucker is here. K-Wall's with us. Cheers to you, K-Wall. Good to see all you guys back. That's why I love doing live shows, because we can interact with you. And I will interact with you a lot today on the show. This is brought to you by Alpine Country in the beautiful city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. I just drove through St. Cloud yesterday. Loving that city. Also brought to you by Elite Guardian. Let's see, what is my website? Elite Guardian. EliteGuardianMN.com. Oh, that's the problem with having too many businesses and orgs. I don't even remember all the websites. If you want to take control of your personal safety and the safety of your family, sign up to do one of my courses. Actually, I have a concealed carry and home defense course, which qualifies you for your permit to carry requirements in the state of Minnesota. You can go to EliteGuardianMN.com. Okay, covered that business. Let's get right into it. Tim Walz announced while I was gone, he had to wait till I was gone, that he's going to run for a third consecutive term. This is unprecedented. No governor in the history of Minnesota. We have been in the state for a bunch of years. Was that 150 years, something like that? 1884. So no one said there was going to be math today. He's been the only governor in, I think, the history, at least since their 4-year terms, because that changed in, I think it was 50s or 60s or something like that. The only one to run for 3 consecutive terms. No governor has done that. Rudy Perpich, which is the longest serving governor in Minnesota history, did have 3 terms, but they weren't consecutive. It's just unprecedented. Most don't run. Now, Tim Pelini served 2 consecutive terms and then ran again and failed in 2018, lost to Jeff Johnson in the primary. So this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to run for an unprecedented amount of times. Tucker is already on the comment section. Walter Hudson will be on the Professor Penn podcast tonight. Would be nice to get a bunch of us in the chat to call it his BS. Well, Walter can debate me anytime he wants. He's pretty much tucked his tail and ran from me. We would love to talk to him about why the GOP budget was a terrible budget that actually spent surplus money, which is a fact. Kathleen, hello from northern Minnesota, land of the Seine. Yes, that's true. And I was just up in northern Minnesota, and it is the land of the Seine. I love it up there. 1884, we became a state just before the Civil War, or did I miss here? Well, that's after the Civil War, so we weren't a state then. Do I not have that correct? Are you fact-checking me live here? Minnesota became a state in 1884. Holy crap, I'm going to feel terrible if I get that one wrong. Minnesota, 1858. What an idiot. Can't believe I got that wrong. Why did I think 1884? 1858. All right. I'm corrected. There you go. That's the thing about this show. We'll bring you truth because we'll fact check ourselves. I don't know why 1884. That was a horrible mess up. 1858. Of course it is. 1858. I know what I'm thinking of. Wisconsin became a state in 1848. So I'm dyslexic and I got the wrong state. I grew up in Wisconsin. I was born in Minnesota, grew up in Wisconsin. Holy cow. Off to a bad start. All right. So anyhow, Minnesota's never had a governor running for 3, or that's had 3 consecutive 4-year terms. Tim Walz wants to be the first to do it. Now, if we get past all the BS, all the malarkey, as Joe Biden would say, of, thank all the people in this room kind of deal, you know how politicians speak. We get into the nuts and bolts of what Tim Walz's first real thing in his reelection announcement is, in his real speech. And let's go to this in Tim Walz's own, from his own mouth here.
Well, contrary to what Gus said, you might know why we're really here tonight. Because we've got unfinished business to attend to. And those of you who know me, no matter what it is, I'm not going to quit until the job's done. So I'm here tonight, folks, asking the people of Minnesota for the privilege of serving as your governor for 4 more years. Because here in Minnesota, we're writing a story about how to govern like good neighbors. We treat each other with respect. We always look to find common ground.
Oh, really?
Where we can.
Uh-huh.
Just as important, everything we do is driven by the commitment to making life just a little bit better for all the people we serve.
Oh, great timing on that ad there. 1 second. We'll get back to Tim Walz. There we go.
We recognize that all we want, and most people across the country, certainly across Minnesota, want the same basic things to make up a good life. They want security, a solid foundation that won't fall away if something goes wrong. We all want opportunity, chance to get ahead, and a chance for our kids to go even further. And maybe most of all, we all want freedom to live our own lives the way we want to.
Oh, he's the libertarian governor. Listen to that. We all want freedom. God bless him for standing up for the things he really believes in. Bullshit. Do you guys ever get the feeling this guy is nothing but an actor? I mean, seriously, when it comes to the campaign trail with Kamala Harris, we get Mr. Gay, like flamboyant Governor Walz. which you don't get that anywhere else. He's angry Walz. That's what we know him of. But now he's a unifier, even though he calls Trump like basically a Nazi and MAGA people for a Nazi, and they're going to do a Nazi rally out in Madison Square Garden. This is Tim Walz, an actor, just an actor who wants to be the governor for 3 consecutive times. I got a $10 Rumble rant from K-Wall for life. I think this is, there we go, pinned on there. Flying solo means you get all the freedom and none of the backup. There you go. You know, Mega Jesse might be doing a show with me later this week. I know a lot of you guys have missed him, so hopefully we can get him back here. So yes, that's all Tim Walz is about, is freedom. You know, forget that whole COVID stuff. We were doing that for the grandparents who we put in nursing homes when they had COVID. No, the guy is an actor. Okay. And I think it's starting to catch up to people. I kind of think that, I mean, certainly I feel with a great degree of certainty that the overall population of the United States, when introduced to this flamboyant, Governor Walz, who was supposed to win the mail vote, doesn't know how to unload his Beretta shotgun, or was he loading it? I don't know what he was doing. Whatever he was trying to do with his Beretta shotgun, this was the guy that was going to resonate with the male demographic. I mean, it backfired so tremendously on these people. It's so funny to me. But yeah, this is Governor Walz. Really got rejected by the population in a national election. Is he going to dupe Minnesota voters again? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But we could look to some recent polling that suggests that Governor Walz actually isn't doing that well. If we go to KSTP, which, by the way, I didn't want to believe KSTP in the 2022 elections. The Trafalgar Group, Alpha News is reporting, had it basically neck and neck. Was hopeful because they did a good job in 2016 calling Trump's election. I mean, KSTP and Survey USA had it dead on. They were dead on. Okay, so it gives me a high level of credibility when we go to KSTP Survey USA polls. Governor Walz is net zero when it comes to approval. So basically 47% of respondents to these polls, and I believe these polls, I should have had this ready to go. They're usually phone surveys. We could just quickly look at this. Survey USA interviewed 775 adults from the state of Minnesota. Doesn't say there. I believe Survey USA only does the phones. Now I'm forgetting if they don't. There's usually some notes in these things, not saying it there. Let's see real quick. Doesn't say it there. Okay. Data collected. All right, it's not saying it there. Okay. Well, regardless, what I was getting to is if it's a phone survey, you're probably going to older voters, which with recent trends might actually make it more Democrat leaning. You would also oversample for Democrats in the state of Minnesota because there just are more Democrats. So really the play here is independents or activating the base of Republicans. So 47% approve, 47% disapprove of Governor Walz. 43% say they prefer a different DFL candidate, which is higher than Walz should run. Star Tribune had the same polling, basically. I think it was like a 4 or 5 point difference. Then they do the head-to-head matchup. They put Tim Walz versus Scott Jensen, so a rematch of 2022. Walz is only winning by 5 points with 14% undecided. Now, if it's undecided, I guess there's a chance for Walz to win those votes, during a campaign. But in many regards, if you're undecided, with Tim Walz and running for a third term and being on the VP candidate, it's like, do you really not know the guy at this point? So that might be a bad thing for him. So only a 5 point difference when put up against Kristen Robbins, who I doubt anyone knows. Maybe they just say, oh, it's a woman and sounds like a good name. Walz is beating her by 7 points with 12% undecided. When going up against Philip Parrish, who's Philip Parrish? We've had him on the show. Who is Philip Parrish? Most people don't know. I think they're just like the sound of the name. 49% Walz, 38% Parrish, 11% margin. Philip Parrish doing better against Tim Walz than Kendall Qualls, one of the establishment's choice. Kendall Qualls, groomed by the establishment. 50% say Walz, 37% Qualls. In fact, that's the only candidate that Walz actually has 50% or above. So a 13-point margin with 13% undecided. So in other words, Philip Parrish is beating Kendall Qualls. That's so funny to me. So anyhow, this is Tim Walz prospects just on the surface without getting in the issues and going through the campaign and how it looks so far for his next term. Now, here's the curse for Tim Walz. Okay, not only the curse of, hey, no one's ever had 3 consecutive terms in the 4-year terms for governor of Minnesota. He's also cursed by this fraud. I mean, this is what's so interesting. I come back, maybe you've seen the story, maybe you haven't. I come back, and here we have the U.S. attorney, acting U.S. attorney, on NPR. This is NPR for people not in Minnesota. I mean, it's national. It's basically national public radio for Minnesota Public Radio. I mean, we're not talking about like a bastion of conservatism. Listen how this interview starts with the acting U.S. attorney.
Over the last 2 weeks, federal prosecutors in Minnesota have charged 9 people with defrauding 2 different Medicaid programs, and they say this is just the beginning. Last week, federal prosecutors charged a woman for defrauding a state autism treatment program out of $14 million. And the week prior, 8 people were charged with defrauding the state's housing stabilization services. Now, the State Department of Human Services is suspending another disability program over fraud allegations. No one has been charged. This is all on top of more than 6 dozen people charged so far in the Feeding Our Future Child nutrition scheme. Acting U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Joe Thompson, is the prosecutor in charge of all these cases. He joins me now in the studio. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, just in what we just rattled off there in the introduction, it's alarming to hear about. And in recent interviews and news conferences that you've held, the ways that you've described fraud in the state are very concerning. You said it was like staring into a bottomless well of fraud. Just how bad is this problem in this state?
It's quite bad. It's program after program that we've looked at and found enormous levels of fraud to the tune of literally billions of dollars altogether.
Can you talk a little bit about how this happens? I know that some people...
Okay, let's cut it right there. And, I think it's so funny on NPR. Like, they have a style, and then the guest just has to match that style because they don't want to come in with more energy. So they kind of drop to the energy of NPR. Sorry, little side note. We do have a $5 Rumble rant from O'Bannon, and yet the Republicans have no good candidates across the board. We have a terrible slate. The result will be a Walz third term. Maybe. You're right. I totally agree, O'Bannon, that we do not have good candidates on the right. But with that being said, I mean, there is a great chance that Tim Walz will lose even to a modest candidates, just because it's different this time, right? And who knows what the temperament of the public is going to be a year from now? We don't know that, okay? What we do know is Tim Walz's propulsion to the national stage has brought more negativity to who he is. I think the polls are kind of showing that. So, I don't have any idea. Tucker says, okay, so this is interesting. Jake, you should run. I could see you winning. Young, outspoken, war veteran, successful husband, father. You have so much going for you. I could see Jake demolishing the field in a debate. Well, that would be fun. Wouldn't that be fun to debate these rhinos and establishment types in a debate? That would be fun. I would enjoy that part very much. Yes. There is zero chance of me running. Wouldn't do that to my family right now. Also, I don't really have those ambitions. I'll tell you what, I have a lot more ambitions to be the governor of the state of Minnesota than to ever run for like a legislative seat or U.S. Senate or Congress. I can tell you that much. But there's just not much chance you're going to see me running for any kind of office. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. It is fall, it's hunting season, and you have to give up hunting season when you're campaigning? I don't think I would enjoy that. Then I would end up being a Tim Walz that doesn't know how to operate my shotgun. Although I didn't abandon my troops in Iraq, so I guess I got that going for me. That's something I got over Tim Walz. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate it very much, but I just can't see that. Defeat the flake Democrats and the flake rhinos. Vote for Jake, says Crucified 1993. That would be so much fun. I always start with Walter Hudson debating me, huh? Going back to the previous comment. This is a real issue. This campaign will be about fraud. Every Republican candidate and allies of Republicans will make this about fraud. Now, here is what I think strategically needs to happen, okay? This is my read on politics in the United States. And I've said this on the show, and I think Donald Trump will be viewed very much going forward on what he can do to make life more affordable for the average American. And this is going to translate down to the Minnesota level. What is life like? I think, well, you guys are watching the show. You know what I'm talking about. Now, some of you might have had some recent success, and so you're maybe a little detached from it because maybe you had some massive promotion or business really kicked off. But most of you can understand this, that life is not becoming more affordable, right? Unless you had that massive promotion or something like that, new string of income, you are seeing the effects of inflation on your budget. Okay. Guys like me see it tremendously because at that same time that it's happening, I got kids that are growing up. Sports are getting more expensive. Clothing is getting more expensive. My kids are eating more food, damn it. Right? Food is going up. Gas is somewhat stabilized, but still very high, right? So how affordable is are things in our economy? Tim Walz has been in power for 8 years. He wants another 4 years. What has Tim Walz done to help that out? Well, guess what he's done? He spent a record $21 billion budget surplus. Now, Republicans helped along the way. They weren't actually out there saying we should give it all back. We were. Action for Liberty was, right? That's like $8,000 more in your pocket. Just think about this. $8,000 more in your pocket because government collected way too much money. But no, Tim Walz spending on more government. So what I think needs to happen is you need to connect this fraud because they do go very well together, right? While we are paying too much taxes, we're overpaying, right? That's what surplus is, and we're not getting it back. Fraudsters keep ripping off Tim Walz's government. And that's mostly because incompetence, unless you want to connect it to like it's nefarious. But I think it's incompetence. Wings, hello from St. Cloud, home of Alpine Capture. Good to see you, Wings. The wonderful Liberty Longbeard. That's what I think would be a dynamite connection here, because fraud, everyone hates fraud, okay? And I do think you kind of feel like we keep getting gypped with all the fraud, but it's not as personal until you make it personal. And this fraud exists because we have this huge Tim Walz funded government that's overspending our money, overcollecting our taxes, and we're not getting back. Meanwhile, people are ripping it off. Okay? So I think that's the dynamite way if you can successfully message on that. Okay? The other thing that's the curse for Tim Walz is he's going very heavily in on this assault weapons ban and doing something following the shooting at the Annunciation Church. This is from Minpo. Stuck in the mud on assault weapons ban. Walz floats idea of constitutional amendment. Now remember, he wants to ban the weapons he did not carry in war, despite what he said in front of an audience once. He never went to war, but he wants to ban those weapons, which I assume he's just referring to the AR-15 style firearms, which aren't the same thing that he would have carried in war if he went to war. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz proposed a new option Saturday for addressing gun violence, a constitutional amendment to ban the sale and possession of assault rifles in the state. Quote, the state would have the voters take a vote because we know it's super popular, Walz said in a discussion with New York Times journalist Lulu Garcia Navarro at the Minute Post Festival at Westminster Presbyterian Church in downtown Minneapolis. The governor has not backed off from his desire to call a special session of the Minnesota legislature in order to ban assault weapons, but it is clear that in a divided legislature, he does not have the votes to make this happen. Okay, in case you guys don't know this, most of the people that watch this show do on a regular basis, Minnesota right now has a tied House, half Republicans, half Democrats. You need Republican votes to pass something in the Minnesota House. The Senate has a majority Democrats, although there's 2 Senate seats that still need to be filled. That'll be a November general election. Could go Republican. Nicole Mitchell's seat could go Republican. Probably won't, but it could go. The other seat, which is pretty safely a Republican seat, was from the late Bruce Anderson. Okay, so 1 second. So this is the good thing: is Republicans seem to feel the pressure from the base, thankfully, at least for now, that there are going to be political consequences if they vote the wrong way. And it stalled a special session. The governor can call a special session, but it's up to the legislature to determine what they're going to do in that special session. So what he wants to do is dance around that, which is still going to involve the legislature, but offer a constitutional amendment, which will go on the ballot next year, which is a horrible idea. Okay? It's a horrible idea because then all the big money on the Democrat side will flood in with a campaign to get rid of your right to keep and bear arms, which, in my opinion, is unconstitutional. It's going against your God-given rights to defend yourself. Now, Democrats understand this, okay, and this is a great article. Written by Jesse, Mega Jesse? Let's see. Written by Mega Jesse on actionforliberty.com. Democrats want armed security for themselves and to take away your gun rights. Rules for thee, but not for me. Or guns for me, but not for thee. I guess that's backwards. This is what the DFL is proposing. DFL expands access to campaign security for all Minnesota candidates. The DFL party released the following statement on the Minnesota Campaign Finances Public Disclosure Board's determination that states, quote, money collected for political purposes may be used to provide security for candidates while campaigning and for events. This decision, prompted by requests from the Minnesota DFL, is crucial in ensuring that Minnesotans can safely run for office regardless of their personal wealth, party affiliation, or campaign activity. With this ruling, candidates can keep their campaign budgets focused on reaching voters without sacrificing their security. As a result of this determination, the DFL will now be able to provide a robust security program, including threat assessments and on-site security at events. How are you going to provide security on-site? Pepper spray? Knives? No, we know what you're talking about. And I am not blaming the Democrats on this one, right? No one is blaming the Democrats for saying, hey, we just had an assassination of our leader, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, and a failed assassination on many other legislators, all Democrats in this case, right? Maybe, just maybe, it would be good for a little security. And how do you secure yourself, or how do you secure your the protected target? With a gun. But what are they trying to do? They're trying to take away our ability to protect ourselves. And do you think their security is going to adhere to, well, only 7-round magazines or anything under 10-round magazines? No, because they want to maximize the protection for the person that they're trying to protect. Just like you and me. Our guns are not involved in crimes. Our guns are protecting ourselves. Everybody I know, left or right, would love to take away firearms from people that will commit crimes. We would love to do it. You tell me how to do that, I'm on board. But guess what? That conversation ends when you disarm me, because my guns, my firearms, are not involved in crimes. They're involved, well, they have two purposes, actually three if you include hunting, but they have two purposes: protecting myself from evildoers like criminals, and protecting ourselves from a tyrannical government. It's the ultimate reason we have a Second Amendment. Okay? The Democrats understand that, at least that part about criminals, because they want to protect their own. And this is happening all the time. You don't think Nancy Pelosi has an entourage of security, right? They all have it. Okay? Would have been very helpful, I mean, it probably wouldn't have been feasible just money-wise, but to have that for their, Melissa Hortman back in June. Okay? Seems crazy. I mean, like, what would you have someone parked out there? Like, that guy was nuts visiting their homes at like 2, 3 in the morning. But they obviously realize there's a threat, Charlie Kirk being one of them, right? It's not just on the left. It's happening on the right. And, there's a segue to talk about Charlie Kirk. I'm away for 2 weeks, It's you can't. So you have to understand, like Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA started around the same time that I founded Action for Liberty with Jack Rogers. Okay, Jack was doing these Tea Party events, and I said, "Hey, I think I had just gotten out of the military, kind of looking to do something patriotic, which I thought politics was the next logical course." Because I had been involved in politics in some regard, going back to like even high school, but really college. Okay, so we took like the Tea Party energy, we created a Tea Party organization, which then became Action for Liberty. Same thing with Charlie, Turning Point USA. What were the roles of these organizations? Mobilizing conservative voices. They actually took it towards like younger people, but then got a little bit more generalized when it came to the most recent election, which made Charlie Kirk a very dangerous person. You think all the times we talk about Action for Liberty being targeted by the establishment, and I don't just mean the Democrat establishment, fraudulent campaign finance investigations against us. I don't even want to go into all this stuff. You can imagine there are things that happen to us, right? Because we are a threat, because we mobilize people. I mean, that's the reason Star Tribune keeps writing about Action for Liberty all the time, right? Because they realize they're very effective at mobilizing grassroots conservative people. So was Charlie Kirk at a much higher level with higher consequences, because unlike Action for Liberty, which is focused mostly on Minnesota, Turning Point USA is global, or it's not global. Well, it probably is global, right? It's national, but it's very focused on a lot of those swing states, to the point where Charlie Kirk 100% was influential on Donald Trump being reelected. 100% was an influential person there, right? Like you kind of wonder, like, how much impact did we have in that election? Certainly we had a very viral state fair booth that drew attention nationally. I don't know, some degree. Charlie Kirk was much more measurable. Charlie Kirk also doing a show, right? Like this, much larger show than this, right? So like, to me, it's like never knowing Charlie Kirk. I know a lot of people that know Charlie Kirk, okay? But I never met Charlie Kirk, right? But I understand like a lot of what he did. He just did it at a much bigger level. I think he liked being in politics a lot more than me. Like I'm always looking for the exit row, other than doing a show, because I love talking about this stuff. But obviously 10 years Action for Liberty, I was ready to hand off the reins. So, it kind of hits you a little different when you watch this stuff. And I do want to emphasize on that last show, which is really funny because in the last 2 weeks, we've had one show that's been up on the website, and that was Who Killed Charlie Kirk. It seems like that was supposedly answered, and that's making people question it. And then you hear the Israel stuff, and you see Candace Owens got shows about things and they're questionable and stuff like that. The one thing that gets me, okay, and this is not a minor thing, but this is the one that gets me, okay? And I know something about this, not just from my military, but also being a big game hunter. The guy was supposedly shooting him with a 30-06. Okay, now I watched the video. I'm sure you watched the video. And the 30-06, the bullet hole goes into the neck. There's no exit hole. I could show you. Well, I probably don't take pictures of this, but I know what the exit hole on white-tailed deer look like. You know what we are? We are not white-tailed deer, right? We are like essentially blood balloons, like very thin skin. It's nothing like a hide of a deer, which is turned into leather. In entrance and exit hole, so it's going through that twice, plus the bone density of a deer or elk, right? I only archery elk hunt, so I wouldn't know. This bullet apparently did not. It got lodged in the skin. This is what really puzzles me about the Charlie Kirk incident. I'm going to read from Andrew Colvett, who is was like the right hand man of Charlie Kirk. He was the spokesperson for TBU USA and was very involved. Producer of the Charlie Kirk Show. It says, I want to address some of the discussion about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize, it's somewhat graphic, but in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle, and I want people to know. I just spoke with a surgeon who worked in Charlie in the hospital. He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc. But it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. I mentioned to this doctor that there were dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent, and he replied, it was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have gone through and through it. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. Even in the death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him. Remarkable, miraculous. Okay, yeah, that does sound good. Let me just quickly look. Skeleton. I'm gonna just go as human bone structure. Let's do that. Because this is what really gets me. This is we're just Googling this, right? Britannica, does that work? That seems like a good source. Britannica. Encyclopedia Britannica. There you go. That's a neck. Okay. If we're to believe that it hit the bone of the neck, right? I mean, then I could believe the bullet slowed down enough not to do a pass through. But if you hit that bone, I mean, can we just all admit the graphic nature of what that would look like, right? And if you watch the video, it didn't, right? It didn't do that. So that would mean that's where it's believable that wouldn't do an exit hole, but hitting that bone would do such immense danger. I can't buy that. Now, could it have hit? Oops. Well, foreshadowing what I'm going to show you here in a bit. Could we believe? I know there was speculation that maybe it hit like the clavicle, but once again, because I could see that hitting a bullet would then cause the bullet, or hitting a bone would cause the bullet to lose velocity and therefore not go all the way through. It doesn't seem evident it did that, nor do I think that would deflect right up. Okay, that to me is a mystery. Now, hear why it's a mystery. And oh, by the way, there was also speculation, which I think has been resoundingly dismissed at this point, that he was wearing body armor. First of all, like if it's a really thin body armor, that wouldn't stop a round of a high-powered rifle. It would have to be a heavy plate. He wasn't wearing that. He was wearing a t-shirt. You would know that. So if he was, I mean, that's logical. It hits the top of the plate and then it loses velocity and gets lodged in there, right? Because all you see, if you watch the video, is an entrance hole, and then the blood starts gushing out of there, which is what would happen. And you see this with wild animals when there's not an exit hole. Like when you're out there in the wild, and I know it's from recently archery hunting, you want an exit hole, because that exit hole, especially if it's lower, it's going to be much easier for the blood to come out of there. You give 2 areas for the blood to get out of there, which is what you want when you're deer hunting or elk hunting, because then they bleed out easier, right? In this case, obviously you don't want that, but blood will then bubble or fill up, and then it'll find the way to exit. Okay. And that's what we're led to believe on it. Now, here's the problem. Okay. And I'm not making a conclusion here. Okay. It's just always interesting, these high profile assassinations. There's always got to be a magic bullet, right? It always seems to be the case. There has to be a magic bullet, right? Why can't we just have a normal assassination? In this case, there is probably a possibility that could happen. I don't know what that is. It just seems very unlikely. The issue is, if he wasn't shot with a 30-06, Tyler Robinson goes away. That whole narrative goes away. And then it asks the question, who shot him? So here we are 2 weeks later, and I'm posing the same question from last show. Who killed Charlie Kirk? Or what killed him? Was it a shot? And why are we being lied to? Got it? I don't know. All I know is that one's bizarre. I will wait for more information to conclude it, but that one's bizarre. It's interesting that this all came out while I'm hunting, and I'm just like, I just don't get it. All right, let's see. If Republicans, let's see. Speaking of, had 2 in the field yesterday afternoon, came out to field scrapes. I'm guessing you're talking about whitetail deer. Tucker says 30-06 from that close, that bullet ripped through. Yeah, and I think the shot was 140 yards, I want to say it was refined to. Initially, that was 200 yards. It's very bizarre. It's a 30 caliber, so the size of the bullet, pretty good sized bullet, but a lot of gunpowder behind that. Okay, it's not, like if you were looking at a 30 caliber versus a 9mm. Yeah, 9mm would be, wider, bigger round, bigger chunk, but the casing, which holds the gunpowder, is so much smaller, right? Like a 9mm is getting about 1,100, 1,200 feet per second. That's how fast it shoots. These things are shooting at like over 2,500 feet per second, up to 3,000 feet per second, something like that. Closer to 3,000 feet per second, I'm assuming. It all depends on grainage and everything and the manufacturer. Like 2 to 3 times faster than a handgun round. So, and the amount of power, we covered this in the last show, foot-pounds on that, on a target would be immense, which would also explain why like the shirt goes up. Okay, I don't want to get any further. I got some friends that are really deep in this stuff. If I think it's important for us to go a little further on this one, I will. I'm not afraid to touch the subject. I wish that we just get the right narrative. Is that too much to ask for these days? Why can't we just get the right narrative? I mean, is it really a magic bullet? Is it in the realm of possibility? Maybe. But come on. That just seems so damn crazy to me. And let's get an explanation. All right. Moving on. I want to quickly talk about the race for auditor in Minnesota. This is actually really interesting. There are Julie Blaha, White Claw Blaha. She's the auditor candidate who ended up crashing her vehicle, and there was a half-drunk White Claw in it. Was she with Melissa Hortman? I think she might have been with. God, was that Hortman that was in the car with her? Some other Democrat was with her, and the Democrat vehicle showed up to the scene to give them a lift. Never charged with, open container or Dewey or anything like that. So White Claw Blaha not running again. There are 3 Democrats already in the race. Adam Jennings, the mayor of Tonka Bay. Also, we've got Dan Wolgamoth, who we call Sylvester the Cat, from St. Cloud, giving up his very toss-up seat in the Minnesota House. And Ben Shearer, Fergus Falls mayor. And what's really interesting is this guy actually has quite an impressive amount of endorsements, including none other than Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, who's probably conspiring to one day become governor of Minnesota. Eric Putnam from St. Cloud. So Eric Putnam's endorsing the candidate running against the state rep of his district. A little controversy there, maybe. Former Congressman Colin Peterson and Rob Kupek. And I guess CD6 DFL chair, whatever that means. Meanwhile, Dan Wolgaman has a list of endorsements from all the Minnesota House Democrats, or most of them probably. So anyhow, fascinating race as it, starts to shape up. I mean, I think there's a Republican getting in the race already, or maybe it did get in there. But it's interesting to see the Democrats going after each other. It's going to be a very interesting election season. All right, let's move to Pete Hegseth's speech. Is this his first real speech with the Department of War, the newly named Department of War? It's no longer the Department of Defense. We are the Department of War, which has historical tones. Pete Hegseth demands troops meet male-level physical standards, rails against fat troops in the military. I only have one clip I'm going to show you. It's towards the end. I'm going to read basically the crux of the speech, which I was actually a friend of mine sent me this morning, asked if I'd watch it, and I told her I hadn't seen it. I wasn't aware it was going on today. I have a lot of things going on right now in my life, so I'm not as up to tune. So then, I watched on the way in, and I thought it was pretty interesting. War Secretary Pete Hegseth harangued a near unprecedented gathering of America's top generals and admirals Tuesday, announcing that combat troops must meet male-level fitness levels to face, quote, life and death situations. If women and weak men don't meet those standards, so be it, Hegseth said in remarks at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations and, frankly, any formations and see fat troops, he went on. It's unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading all around the world. It's a bad look, and it's not who we are. Hegseth's fitness directive will be sent out to each branch of the service and will highlight new mandates and standards for service members. Combat forces will have to do real hard physical training every day and undergo 2 tests each year to ensure they are up to the highest male standard. Hegseth, 45, has occasionally been filmed joining troops for physical training, even challenging Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to a Pete and Bobby challenge to inspire Americans to pursue fitness. This is obviously a photo of a young butter bar lieutenant, female, right? I think it's female. Yeah, female. I guess loading a sandbag on a truck. Here's what looks like a physical fitness test, APFT as we called it back in the Army. Assume that's what they still call it. Was that Army Physical Fitness Test, APFT? Here's your sergeant, as the grader, and this is the setup portion. Hegseth says, I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape or in combat units with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standard as men, or troops who are not fully proficient on their assigned weapons, platformer tasks, or under a leader who has the first but not the best, the secretary said. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. If not, they're not standards, they're just suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed. Hegseth also charged that too many. Let me try that again. Hegseth also charged that too many members of the military were promoted based on their identities and not merit. This is this really the audience he's looking at? That is our top brass and top NCOs there. The era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feeling leadership ends right now at every level, he said, inviting any brass who disagree with his approach to do the honorable thing and resign. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses, no more climate change worship, no more division, distraction, or gender delusion, no more debris. I've said it before and we'll say it again. We are done with that shit. More leadership changes will be made. Hegseth promised of that. I'm certain. I mean, the left and MSNBC is losing their shit over this. It's just common sense, all right? My time in the military, 12 years, 4 enlisted, 8 years as an officer, left as a captain, all as a 11 Bravo or 11 Alpha, meaning infantry. Why do we have different standards for females? When I was in, the women were not in combat arms other than I think they could be in field artillery, not as forward observers. After leaving the military, which I left in 2013, I want to say, they start allowing women in combat arms. I don't agree with that decision based off just the morale of the units and the problems that ensue. But at the very least, if you're going to do that, which seems to be Hegseth's stance here, is they need to be the same standards. Now, if you got a cook in the military or a band member in the military or whatever you want to call and, support, like some kind of support unit, I don't give a shit if your APFT standard is lower. It doesn't matter as much as a combat arms unit. Every infantryman must do the standard of, well, quite frankly, it shouldn't even really matter too much on age. You shouldn't meet a minimal standard in general if you're leading troops. But if you're leading troops, you shouldn't have 19 push-ups for females, and it's got to be 38 for men. Like that, that doesn't even make sense to me, right? Are you capable of doing the job? It doesn't matter your gender in that case. You need to be capable of doing the job. The one thing I remember, because as an enlisted infantry guy, my time in service with women was so limited, right? Because it's all men at that time. And I'll remember ROTC summer camp up in Fort Lewis, Washington. It was the first time I actually trained with women out in the field. And the thing I noticed, the biggest one, which is not a shocker here, was throwing grenades. Like, women could not throw grenades like half the distance men can. I mean, obviously, it's like throwing a baseball. That's essentially what throwing a grenade. I always took pride in how far I could chuck a grenade, because I'm essentially chucking, I want to say, a pretty heavy-sized baseball. Okay? At least that's what our grenades are, right? Women are not throwing them in that far. Think how dangerous not throwing a grenade is. Like, you want to make sure that thing goes where you throw it. Trust me. I've thrown live grenades. You don't want to be right by that grenade. And if you are, you want to have solid concrete in between you. So women need, if they're going to be in combat units, they need to have the same standards. And there's a bunch of directives. I hope they're up here. I'm going to try to do this because I did this before this web show. Yep, that's what I was worried about. I think the Pentagon has maybe decided to change some things or take it down. Yeah, because I'm getting a blank page here. All right, so much for transparency. Most transparent administration of all time. Just giving you guys shit. Supposedly this shows the directive. I was researching before, but for whatever reason it's not coming up. This is on the Pentagon war, which is now war.gov news today in Department of War. So all rebranded U.S. Department of War. And this was the publications. Yeah, for some reason, as you can see right here, it's just not pulling up. But it addresses the grooming standards. So this is some of the big changes that Hegseth announced when he assembled the generals and the admirals. The new grooming standards for facial hair. This is an interesting one to me. I was always taught you couldn't have a beard in the military. And I like having a beard. I'm a guy that likes having a beard. And a beard is historic in the military, but you can't have a beard because then you can't get a tight-fitting pro mask, for basically a gas mask, right? And so you can't have facial hair. If you were to have facial in the military, you would think it would have some grooming standards. I've seen people in uniform, and I'm like, and hair too, by the way. Like, what are you even talking about? My hair right now, I thought about getting a haircut before doing this show. I'm not in the military anymore, but I still like it off the ears. It's a little too much on the ears right now, right? It's like ingrained in my mind. At least I have a trim beard, but this is kind of long and kind of scraggly. It's like there needs to be these grooming standards, and I've definitely noticed that, like, kind of lax standard in the military, which to me looks bad and unprofessional. And then obviously military fitness standards. I wish that would have opened up because we could get into a little bit more about like what they're putting out. But this is the way to go about it. In hierarchical command structure, like the almost the Department of Defense is, the Department of War. You would address this to your senior leaders, the generals and the admirals. And so that's what they did. They assembled this team. So this is the part of the speech that I thought was really fascinating, probably the most important. This is towards the end of his speech where Pete Hegseth talks about our warfighting abilities.
Finally, as President Trump rightly pointed out when he changed the department name, the United States has not won a major theater war since the name was changed to the Department of Defense in 1947. One conflict stands out in stark contrast: the Gulf War. Why? Well, there's a number of reasons, but it was a limited mission with overwhelming force and a clear end state. But why did we execute and win the Gulf War the way we did in 1991? There's two overwhelming reasons. One was President Ronald Reagan's military buildup gave an overwhelming advantage. And two, military and Pentagon leadership had previous formative battlefield experiences. The men who led this department during the Gulf War were mostly combat veterans of the Vietnam War. They said never again to mission creep or nebulous end states. The same holds true today. Our civilian and military leadership is chock full of veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan who say never again to nation building and nebulous end states. This clear-eyed view, all the way in the White House, combined with President Trump's military buildup, postures us for future victories if, and we will, and when we embrace the War Department. And we must.
Okay. Put me down in total agreement with that. Okay, right? This is the problem that I see with the modern military. This mission creep, this endless wars, right? I want peace through strength, right? Okay, I want a strong military. Now, that doesn't mean $1 trillion Pentagon budget, by the way. That's not what makes our military strong. And in many regards, what I think Hegseth is addressing here is going to make the military stronger, right? Actually going back to standards and uniformity, and war fighting, guided generals and admirals. But in the very end of the day, it almost that all that gets derailed if we just put people in endless wars. I hope to God Trump and Hegseth think that way and lead that way. Okay? Because if we're going to continue on the same disaster of endless wars, we are going to have a military that will not recoup, and it needs to recoup, right? We need to be a strong military, but not a military that's just showing its might endlessly with mission creep. I remember saying this in Afghanistan towards the end. What is the mission in Afghanistan? We don't do anything in the military without a mission. What is the mission? And I don't think there was one, which is insanity. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Pete Hegseth's speech in the new Department of War. You need someone to read the comments. Are we getting good comments here? If these big name action stars can stay in shape in their 70s, then these generals can too. I'm just going to, sorry, Mr. Zorb, can you see if Zorb is I'm so sorry. I can't, I got to cut this here. I'll get to these. Maybe I'll get to some of the comments in the post show. There you go. That's what I'll do. I want to leave on a good note here. Something that I think a lot of people aren't tracking here. Somebody had an MMA debut in Minnesota, and I think with the Vikings' recent losses, now 2-2. My Bears are 2-2 as well. It's good to see something to take pride in Minnesota, especially after the Twins' terrible season. Gable Stevenson, the U of M standout, All-American wrestler, and Olympic gold medalist, started his professional MMA debut. This was right as I was leaving the state of Minnesota. Otherwise, I probably would have gone to the event. And he did exactly what I thought he was going to do, just demolish this guy, this big dude, Braden Peterson from Montana. Check this out. This is on UFC Fight Pass. It's not a UFC fight, though. Just ground and pound, mauling this guy, just as a top-notch wrestler should be able to do to a more experienced guy, full mount. This thing is over. There you go. 1-0 as a professional in his debut. This is Mystic Lake Casino. This was September 12th. So I think it was a Friday, September 12th. There you go. And by the way, who's in his corner? Who's in his corner? Which I knew this going into it. I really would have loved being at the event. I wish I could have been. No other than the UFC heavyweight champion, John Jones. Although I guess he kind of vacated it, but let's still call him the champion. There you go. Gable Stevenson. There you go. Talking to John Jones, the GOAT in MMA. Minnesota pride. Born and raised Minnesota. I assume he was born. Raised in Minnesota. Went on to Gophers. All-American, Division I. Then became an Olympic gold medalist. Great athlete. Actually walked onto the Bills and was on their training squad. Played in some preseason games. Sorry about this. Let's get out of here. All right, so this show, Billy2222 is here. Good to see you. This show we're going to have a more loose schedule here going forward, just so you guys know. So if you're watching the show a lot, we're going to have we're not going to necessarily be live every Tuesday and Thursday, just based on some schedules of us. I'm hopefully going to have Maga Jesse on later this week. So just hopefully, I hope we could have some bit of a schedule, but common thing, but I don't know at this point. So, but I do. There's nothing more than these last 2 weeks. A lot of that was planned, although there's a family related thing. I'll get it in the post show. If you want to join us in the post show, you can check us out. Go to truthhurtsnews.com. Otherwise, I'll post it right here. This is how you can be a premium subscriber. Thank you to Alpine Capturing in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Thank you to EliteGuardianMN.com. Thank you to our Rumble Rants today, which was K-Wall for Life with a $10 Rumble Rant and O'Bannon with a $5. I'll see you guys soon. For everyone else that's a premium subscriber, I'll see you in the post show. Hold on. How do I do this again? I almost forgot. Thank you very much.